This is case conceptualization using attachment theory. So with attachment theory, children tend to develop attachment styles such as secure, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized, based on the consistency and the bond of the caregiving that they were received. So the quality of early childhood from ages birth to 3 is a big significant impact on the development of a person, as the child's bond with their mother or primary caregivers shapes their sense of security and expectations moving forward with future relationships. Early attachment experiences influence long-term emotional development, which can include self-esteem, coping skills, and just relationship patterns moving forward. Attachment styles can change across the lifespan as new experiences happen, new supportive relationships, or therapeutic interventions, and that can reshape the earlier patterns. So thoughts about yourself really reflect how you show yourself to your partner. So being positive, having a secure, healthy boundary, mutual trust and support, and the controlled conflict and resolution. Anxious, so fear of abandonment or a constant need for validation. So always needing validation in a relationship, if that's physically or mentally. And then the dependent of a partner for self-worth. So for example, if when you were younger, you weren't really getting motivation or being acknowledged for your self-esteem, or not being told that you look good in an outfit, that could be moving forward where when you're in a relationship with somebody, always needing that validation of, do I look good? Do I look okay in this? So dismissive avoidance, so avoiding intimacy and vulnerability, having commitment issues. So for example, if you had an absent caregiver a lot, that can reflect moving forward at times, having commitment issues in your relationship. So another thing could be feeling guarded and closed off. So having a hard time opening up about if you have an argument with your partner, that could be a reason of, if you were younger, your caregiver was very closed off with you. Fearful and avoidant, so the fear of rejection, a hard time trusting and relying on your partner. And again, with that low self-esteem. So if you really weren't getting that reinforcement on doing a good job, or, for example, if you get a good grade and your parent just doesn't really acknowledge that, that can really affect moving forward in relationships of needing, having a hard time with the fear of rejection or just that low self-esteem. So the founder of attachment theory in the 1950s and 60s, John Bowlby, was a British psychiatrist, and he really developed the attachment theory. Bowlby emphasized the importance of emotional warmth and recognized that children need strong bonds to thrive. He proposed the concept of an attachment behavioral system, which explains how children instinctively seek closeness to a caregiver for safety and support. So again, talking about those early childhood experiences really affect how we move forward with the closeness with other people. So his work highlighted that nature of an early caregiver, so childhood relationship, plays that really critical role in shaping a child's emotional growth and future with relational patterns. Another person that really was a huge impact when it came to attachment theory was Mary Ainsworth. She expanded on Bowlby's work by studying infants and how they react when they're separated and reunited with their mothers. So her research really demonstrated how caregiving styles, shapes, and patterns of attachment and emotional responses really showed the relationship with the caregiver. In 1978, she introduced the strained situation assessment by conducting research on the separation between the baby and mother. Ainsworth studied the responses of the infants and how they manage distress and seek comfort with their mothers when they leave and then when they return. So the conclusion of this study led to the identification of 3 fundamental attachment categories, such as secure, insecure, avoidant, and anxious. each reflecting patterns of the infant with the caregiving bonds. The key concepts and terms to remember is that secure attachment occurs when a child trusts that the caregiver will provide comfort and support when they need. The confidence allows the child to explore their environment while knowing they have a reliable caregiver to go back to. Insecure attachment is when a child struggles to trust and relies on their caregiver for support and comfort. This can lead to challenges in forming close relationships and managing emotions effectively. The internal working model is the experiences that shapes how a person views themselves and others and their relationships. It influences expectations, behavior, emotional responses, and their interactions throughout life. The internal working model of others is developed from an early experience and serves as a mental blueprint for predicting how others are likely to respond and behave. So it shapes the expectations again and the trust and the behavior in future relationships. The internal working model of self, so that is how you feel about yourself, your worth, your capabilities, and it influences how you yourself represent yourself and interact with others throughout life. So the source of the problems when coming to attachment theory is early caregiver relationships again. So going back to that bond between a baby and their caregiver, if it's inconsistent, neglectful, or unresponsive, it can significantly affect the child's overall development. Emotional needs, so when a child needs for safety and comfort and emotional connection, when that's not consistently met, it can disrupt the development of a secure attachment. Over time, this can influence how the individual forms relationships again and manages that throughout life. Many adult problems stem from early childhood experiences of inconsistent, being unavailable, or emotionally unresponsive caregiving. So just not showing up or being there for the child. Attachment-related difficulties can impact conflict management, intimacy with your partner, and forming really secure bonds. So having, a best friend in your life. If you're not having a best friend that's consistent, that can be a form of having a hard time trusting people. So the solutions to this problem can strengthen the emotional bond between a child and their primary caregiver through consistent nurturing interactions. So, maybe that's a form of physical touch, just holding your child, making sure they feel that they are loved. Increase caregiver responsiveness to the child's emotional needs. So a basic example could be if the child is crying, you would comfort the child. Establish predictable daily routines to promote a sense of safety and stability. So that could be if the child is starting school and the caregiver makes them breakfast every day and drives them to school. Teach the child skills for identifying and regulating emotions. So if the child is sad, the child would cry. If the child is happy, they would smile. So just identifying and noticing those emotions and how to use them. Providing consistent reassurance and validation. So making sure that the child is seen and heard and is always being understood by the caregiver. Reduce caregiver stress by offering supportive resources and parenting guidance. So if the caregiver is going through a hard time, making sure they seek out help in order to be able to give that love to the child. Implement relationships based on interventions such as play therapy and therapy sessions in general. So play therapy can be a way that that can make the relationship more stronger. So what a social worker should be doing during assessment should really explore the client's early bonds with their mother or primary caregivers. So considering how these relationships may have influenced emotional development. So asking the questions of, for example, tell me the relationship you had with your mother, or did you and your mother get along? the client's life history from childhood to present to gain an understanding of their emotional bonds and patterns. So that could be if the person is having a hard time keeping relationships, romantic relationships, maybe asking the question of, well, was there anybody in your life that was consistent in your life? Utilizing tools such as a genogram to map significant relationships and identify attachment patterns across the client's lifespan. And then the eco map can gain a clearer picture of the family dynamics. So having that visual can really show where everybody's dynamic is in the family and how maybe that can be changed. So in exploring those current relationships too, such as support networks, to understand how past attachment experiences continue to affect the person's functioning. So just having that emotional development too is also extremely important with attachment theory and with the caregivers. So again, going back to showing what type of emotions to use. So within 3 months, a child will stops crying when picked up. 9 months, stiffens the body when annoyed and shows fear of strangers. And then 2 years, consistently demands attention and has tantrums and feels frustrated. And 4 years, very affectionate to people they see often. So having this model here shows that this is what should be happening with a child. And if something in a session where a client said, oh, well, when I was about 4 years old, I really wasn't affectionate with anybody, that could be something to think about. Well, did you trust people in your family? So making sure the social worker is asking those questions and going back to the development of the caregiver. So a way that this can be changed is to strengthen, build, secure healthy relationships between the client and a mother or a caretaker. So if, having maybe the caretaker or mother come in a therapy session to talk about things, increasing emotional regulation so that the client can better manage feelings and relationships. So acknowledging the feelings that they might have about their caretaker or about others and just validating them. Enhance the client's sense of safety when connecting with others. So if a client trusts too much, maybe learning how to set those boundaries of maybe the client is a people pleaser and wants to make everybody happy. The social worker can talk about, let's find a way to set boundaries. And then again, just building that awareness how early attachment experiences influence the current behavior and relationship patterns. So again, going back to this is what happens in your early development, which is why Bowlby always talked about how important it is. Improving overall relationships quality with family, especially where attachment styles have created challenges. So really looking at the content of what happened with the relationship with the caretaker and the client, and really acknowledging what does need to be changed here. So just having that circle of security, again, just to have a visual here, the parent just attending to the child's needs, hoping to be a secure base and a safe haven. So comforting the child, organizing the feelings, and always being willing to go with the caretaker as support. So the intervention of a social worker's role, it's applying that empathetic approach, focusing on understanding emotional needs and the relationship patterns, using reflective questioning, so to help the client identify sources of maybe anxiety, needs, and ways to relate to others. Explore again how the client's early attachment experiences influence their current feelings and behaviors. Supports the development of emotional regulation, and then again applying and having a stronger sense of safety within those relationships. Identifying signs of insecure attachment in the caregiver, and explore how this may affect their caregiving style. So if the client is a mother themselves and the child and the mother aren't getting along, that would be something to talk about. Say, well, what would happen when you and your caretaker got into an argument like this, or if there was an argument like that. Again, looking for transference patterns and uncover needs that were unmet. So in the caregiver's own upbringing. So if the client didn't get a lot of validation from the mom or the caretaker, really exploring that with the client and seeing if they have those patterns too. The intervention, again, between a client and a caregiver. Sessions between the caregiver and the child to strengthen the relationship. Guidelines to discuss that, how the child's voice and emotional needs do really matter. Encouraging the caregiver to reflect on their own childhood again, and then supporting both parties as well. So showing them that they're both being supported and both that their feelings are valid. Promotes open communication so each person can better understand the other's needs and perspectives. So again, those goals of the intervention, so strengthening the current caregiver-child relationship, addressing those early patterns to improve emotional regulation and build that trust. The critiques of attachment theory is that it lacks a holistic approach. It emphasizes more on the mother and child ignoring borders, so social, cultural, and systematic influences on development. So not every culture is its mother and child. It could be other different types of caretakers as well. We'll be really focused on the mother and child. Overlooking roles, again, of other caregivers, such as peers, grandparents, any different type of person. So attachment behavior across diverse family structures, not including who else that baby is comfortable and secure with. And another thing I want to clarify is that attachment theory is outdated for modern social work because, again, it focuses narrowly on the mother and child's relationship, really in ignoring the broader social, cultural, environmental influences on a client's development. And then by not considering the full context of a person's life, from micro to macro systems, social workers risk missing important factors that shape the client's experiences. So let's talk about Jennifer and Estelle. Jennifer is a 10-year-old Salvadorian girl. She lives with her paternal grandmother, Estelle, who is her primary caregiver. Jennifer's biological mother has been absent since Jennifer was a few months old, and her father continues to be inconsistent with his presence. Jennifer is described as difficult and hyper. Estelle, who's 45, works full-time at a factory and struggles to balance her responsibilities. Estelle primarily speaks Spanish with a secondary language in English. She just tends to feel really exhausted, stressed, overwhelmed by the parenting. Jennifer's father, Carlos, who is 28 years old, has a history of substance use disorder, violence, and law enforcement involvement. He says that he stays at the family home sporadically and often leaves for a few weeks or months at a time, and he's living with different girlfriends within that time as well. His interactions with Jennifer are very unpredictable, ranging from affectionate to distant, depending on his mood and circumstances. So the important dynamics and issues of this case: Jennifer demonstrates insecure attachment due to inconsistent caregiving and emotional unpredictability. Her father's sporadic presence creates a lot of confusion and disappointment in the relationship. Estelle's emotional and physical exhaustion limits her ability to provide that consistent emotional reinforcement for Jennifer. Jennifer's hyper and defiant behaviors function as attachment-seeking communication, not internal misconduct. So Jennifer basically is looking for attention anywhere she can find it. She shows signs of fears of emotional rejection expressed through, again, that attention seeking and emotional outbursts. The intergenerational stress of trauma influences both Estelle's caregiving capacity and Jennifer's emotional security. The problems in this case is that Jennifer's difficulties stem from her, again, those insecure attachment bonds with the inconsistent caregivers in her life. So with the absence of her biological mother and her unpredictable father really disrupt Jennifer and her sense of safety. Estelle is a caregiver burnout. She reduces emotional availability and any relational consistency because she's working all the time. She really doesn't have that emotional factor in order to give Jennifer that attention that she needs right now. Jennifer's emotional dysregulation does reflect the unmet need for consistent connection and reassurance. So again, Jennifer will try and get any attention that she can get, even if it's negative attention, just so that somebody can notice her and validate her. So there's a graph here, the primary caregiver's behavior towards the child. So the child's working model of itself, so feeling positive and loved, is secure. Unloved and rejected, avoidant, angry and confused is resistant. So if you're feeling positive, more positive, and you feel loved and noticed, it's going to be more of that secure attachment. Feeling rejected, it's going to be more avoidant, and then just angry and confused on where to put your emotions, that's more resistant. So the solutions to the problems in this case is strengthening that emotional relationship between Jennifer and her grandmother, increasing that consistency and predictability in daily routines and caregiver responses. So kind of creating that routine that Jennifer and Estelle can have so that Jennifer can predict what is going to happen that day. Teaching Jennifer emotional identification and regulation skills, kind of explaining to her what is good attention and what is bad attention. Supporting Estelle in becoming more emotionally responsive caregiver, so validating Estelle's feelings that this is a lot for you, but let's find ways to validate those emotions and see how we can make ourselves a better caregiver for Jennifer. And then establishing that safe, trusted therapeutic relationship through that attachment-based interventions. With the assessment, Jennifer's emotional reactions to the caregiver and attention and separation have really affected the relationships. Patterns of attachment and seeking behavior, so defiance, hyperactivity, emotional reactivity, internal beliefs related to abandonment and that self-worth and trust. The impact of the father's inconsistency on Jennifer's emotional stability really does affect Jennifer more than she thinks, because she doesn't have that consistent parent in her life. Caregiver stress, such as burnout and cultural context. So Estelle is burnt out. She does not have anything left to give Jennifer emotionally. She is just trying to support her more of a physical way. So strengths such as creativity, sociability, and resilience. So really reminding Jennifer that, we can still be social, but let's be social in a way that is going to help her moving forward than causing more stress to other people. Know and understand about the client in this lens. She has a really hard time with consistency, warmth, and emotional safety, which is causing her to not really have that trust. She doesn't have the trust through consistency. Use a play-based assessment to understand Jennifer's internal world, so kind of using that play therapy again. Listen to Jennifer's narrative about family relationships. So the social worker really should be asking Jennifer what the family dynamic is like. The social worker should also observe the interactions between Jennifer and Estelle, because that the social worker can see things and bring it to therapy and talk about it. Collaborating with the school and aftercare providers to understand the behavior across settings. So yes, Jennifer is very defiant and looking for attention, but maybe talking with the school and finding different ways to, we don't always have to contact Estelle if there's an issue, but maybe find different ways of working with Jennifer. So maybe providing that aftercare so Estelle can work and not feel so stressed about making sure Jennifer's okay. Social workers making a change. So again, the social worker should teach regulation and coping strategies. So if Jennifer is upset about something, how to help her, and also if Estelle is ever feeling upset, how to find coping skills with that. Establishing a therapeutic alliance, supporting Jennifer and expressing her feelings using appropriate emotional language. So not taking away Jennifer's feelings and how she expresses them, just changing them so that it could be more helpful for her moving forward. Coach Estelle in delivering emotionally responsive caregiving. So talking with Estelle of that Jennifer really does need that care and support right now, and teaching her ways that she can support her. Developing predictable family routines again. Having those routines will really help Jennifer feel more stable within a relationship. So creating that attachment relationship now with Estelle and Jennifer. Collaborating with the school and the YMCA staff to create consistent behavioral supports. So making Jennifer feel that she's involved somewhere, feeling like she belongs, that people want her around. And then just reinforcing Jennifer's strengths such as confidence and positivity, identity development will help her a lot. The goals of the intervention is to again, strengthen that bond between Jennifer and Estelle, support attention learning and classroom functioning, and developing positive self-esteem and self-worth. And then again, just really elaborating Jennifer to empower her expressions, to express herself and her emotions in healthy ways. So shifting the internal belief from I'm too much to I'm valued and loved. Concerns and challenges to conceptualize. Attachment theory may unintentionally overemphasize caregiver responsibility. There is a risk of caregiver blame due to Estelle's stress-based reactions. So the theory does not fully work to address structural stressors such as poverty and work demands. So Estelle is working a lot, and this theory doesn't really talk about that as much. The language barriers. So Estelle's first language is Spanish. So this may slow the therapeutic process and impact understanding interventions. Difficulty in tolerating a child's emotions, needs. If they trigger feelings of inadequacy, this could overwhelm them. And then just the high stress, exhaustion, and burnout may limit the caregiver's emotional availability to engage and reflect in this process. The father is still unpredictably not around. If he's continuing, this will interfere with the progress. So in the end, if the father is still being inconsistent, this still causes a problem. Attachment-based work is relational and requires time and emotional commitment. Jennifer may initially resist vulnerability due to emotional and self-protection. Estelle's work schedule and her fatigue, again, this is something to really think about with this client, and could limit the consistency of the therapeutic participation. And that is how attachment theory would help with Jennifer and Estelle's situation.